Howdy! So this is my end curses editor. I've been using it for about 8 months. I kind of only really work on it when I make a video. The original inspiration of this was getting quite upset about a old version of Kdenlive on Debian Stretch, I believe. But either way, since it does kind of have this gradual development cycle, it's still a little bit buggy, and I don't know if I'd recommend anyone else to use it at the moment, but I am currently working on it and trying to clean up some of the messier scripts. It essentially uses FFmpeg for rendering and converts everything into an editing format. So right now I'm just going to show off the basic features. So let's take a look at some of the features. The first feature I guess we should be looking at is the menu feature. Even though that this menu is not actually called upon very often, you do need it for the first step of actually normalizing the video to an editing format. And for that, you can just type in MEN and tab, and they'll autocomplete it and bring up the menu. So there's options for going into Ranger, normalize all files, which takes everything in the unprocessed directory and makes it 30 FPS, 1080, same audio codec, and at the same time pretty much moves them into the footage directory. So next we get to normalize single file, which I don't know if it actually is completely implemented yet. I actually don't use that often, and I did do a little bit of a rewrite, but we'll ignore that. Normalize different resolutions. That takes the unprocessed directory for typically screen recording, which is sometimes 1600 by 1200, or let's say 1024, 768, 1280, 800. Pretty much something that isn't 16:9. And since I do my videos in 1080p at 30 FPS, it will take the screen recording and pretty much scale it up to as big as you possibly can make it while keeping the aspect ratio intact, and then apply a background to the sides of it. So anyways, on to our next thing, subtitler, which kind of just creates those little outro clips. It uses my green screen program, which has like an added feature for Symlinks. I'll probably get more into it at some point. Probably not in this video though. And I think Start Editor and Quit do about the same thing. And like every good program, the help file is not implemented because I'm probably the only user of this software. So I guess let's get back to our menu. So I guess the most common command I use is probably cut. So how about we take a little bit of a look at subtitle. And at 7.697 seconds, you can tell from the duration listed here. And let's say we want it to be a flat 7 seconds. So we can just cut subtitle.f, and it should autocomplete. And then we can just say start to 7, and after that just press enter, and it should make a CU3, or in this case the last CU. So if you actually want to view a video clip, you can play and then CU3. But in this case, I'm going to show off last CU. By the way, it does have tab autocomplete for all the functions and file names, which is actually quite helpful. So if I press this, I should get a 7-second version of this, which says I need to practice. And this is referring to violin, I think, but learning coding and programming and things like that, it's I could probably need some practice in Bash. But anyways though, let's take that and double it. Let's make it 14 seconds long, or in fact triple it. Let's use Concat, which just takes one clip and puts another clip and another clip And we'll just do last CU, and how about we even do cu3.mkv? It's the same file, but press enter, and it should be concatenated within a few seconds. And then we can type in play last cn, and it should be about 21 seconds long. I think the accuracy of this is within a tenth of a second at least. I'm not entirely sure, but let's keep in mind it does use copy codec and not any rendering, so it'll pretty much run as fast as your hard drive will. So that's kind of nice, but you get a nice 21 second clip. Just repeats. So those are the two most common things I use, but every once in a while I want to get rid of a portion of a video clip. So let's take a look at final mid vid again. So I want to say let's get rid of everything after the scroll saw and begin at the violin. So I guess the scroll saw starts at roughly 16 seconds. So you can go here and type in snip and go back here, final midvid, type in, see where I pull up the violin. So 16 to 227. And if we press enter, we should get a nice little SN clip. So now if we type in play SN2, I think that's the latest one, but you know, actually just to be sure, we can just press SN and it will actually highlight all the ones we need. So, or all the ones it could be, and then we just type in sn2.mkv and press enter. So now we can see we have our second clip. Probably should close the first window. And we have snipped everything from the scroll saw at about 14 or 15 seconds, all the way to the violin. And it still has my outro on it. This one's a different one. It says but anyways, let's discuss one of the other features, which is overlay. Before you could run overlay, you need to run audio source, because the timings for AAC or whatever audio codec this is using aren't necessarily tied to the video. So to get accurate timings, I have to strip a WAV file from it. And rendering the audio to a WAV file back and forth over again is gonna reduce audio quality over time. So actually, just to get the audio into that WAV file called audio source. So I think the last thing we did was a snip. So let's do lastsn.mkv. And press enter. And this should overwrite the source audio WAV. So let's make this a little bit less confusing. So as you can see, there's a bunch of files labeled off their operations on the side. And let's say I want to get rid of some or rename some. So I'm going to press escape. And first thing I want to do is get rid of CU2. So all I have to do is press D, comes up with remove, and enter. And then let's say SN2, which is what we've been working with, should be renamed to something else. So how about we rename SN2 snip or something, if we don't already have one of those. So I can just press escape again, go into this mode, use the arrow keys, and navigate down to SN2. And then from there, all I have to do is press A, and it brings up the directory it's going into, because we have them separated from footage and work. And we can rename it snip2. So after that's renamed, we can use one of the other things I commonly use, which is overlay. And overlay lets you take a clip like snip 2 and keep the audio for that, but simply put another video feed over the top. So it's kind of like having another video in a different track where audio is the same. So since we have a 50-second long clip, how about we insert the outro at 5 seconds? Just for the sake of it. So press enter, and hopefully this will work. It should work. I use this for editing my videos for the last like probably 8 months, but it's always the cycle of like fixing a new bug you find or adding a feature you want. I think the last one I added was a speed feature, which allows you to accelerate stuff in this editor. So let's see, it should be OV0. So OV0 tab, and we can press or type in play, press enter, and I think I said 5 seconds, right? Yep. So there's our little outro at 5 seconds, and we can just press Q to close that. And I think that sums up the most basic commands. There are some additional ones I don't use that often, such as adding and subtracting time codes. So like if I add 106 and let's say 59, should tell me that's like 2 minutes and 0.5 seconds. Probably needs a little bit of additional formatting on that, but there's a help command in here, which isn't completely accurate anymore, but kind of goes through the basic things. And the final thing I use is smooth, and since this stuff is probably going to be inserted using the overlay function, I can't really show off what it does, but it just essentially takes the audio for the clip and just smooths the edges. There's also speed, which I've only used twice, mainly for this video. For this portion, speeding up the, there should only be 2 SPs here. So let's take a look at SP1. So, have to tell it to play it. So, it's great when you make an editor and mess up its own syntax. But anyways, just kind of accelerates the clip. So, and how you use that is just type in speed, the clip name, and this one actually does do a re-render, but if you type in 0.1, it's like 10 times the speed. I think I can actually show it off if I do a pretty short clip here. So how about we speed up subtitle.mkv by 10 folds. Hopefully this works, because this is the newest feature, and with the newest feature, since it's kind of like in a constant cycle of development, every time I make a video, you're not necessarily that sure of it working. But I mean, I guess in summary, that's about it for everything on the current state and how my editor works. Copy codec, FFmpeg scripts, little C++ ncurses interface, and a little bit of C ncurses interface. But I guess the final thing is, let's see what SP2 looks like. Oh wow. So it did accelerate it for the first few frames, but then it just kind of hung there. But either way though, since speed seem to work on the longer clips, so I'll probably work on that in a future update and address some of the other issues I'm having with it, which aren't actually quite big enough where I have a huge difficulty fixing them, because this is actually a relatively small code base. It's somewhere between like probably 1 and 2,000 lines at the most. I don't know if you'd consider my green screen library code or pretty much the code I wrote to make the music videos a long time ago, or the auto-generated music videos. And if you want to take a look at that, that actually doesn't use FFmpeg, but uses PPM files, which are kind of just uncompressed image files for doing the video editing. And I did reuse some of that code on this project, mainly for the subtitle thing. So, and if you actually want to see how that works, I'm probably going to kill the process before it finishes. Type in menu, go down to subtitler, and it just opens a Vim file. You know, it says I need to practice. So how about we say a lot, and then it just generates that little outro clip after I close Vim. Pretty simple. So I guess that's about it for that part. I should probably get into how I actually made the video. Okay, so after I, run fdisk and copy everything over to footage, I guess I should probably show you how I actually edit everything. I mean, the first thing I do is run normalize, but let's take a look at what actual editing looks like. So this is sped up by 10x using that new speed function, and I simply just go through, watch most of the clips, pick the best ones out of the bunch. Sometimes I only have one shot. I typically look for the ones with the least amount of shaky camera. And I do have a camera stand, but it's a little bit beat up. But after I find the ones with the least amount of shaky cam, I kind of just compile them into series of B-roll clips, get different angles and things like that. It's a little bit different if I'm doing a screen capture type video, but that's essentially what I do for the actual hardware builds. And I mean, it does take a little bit of time. Sometimes I will end up assembling like a few different series of clips, and then from there get like onwards to actually narrating them. So I'll actually like play the videos on a laptop and talk over them just to make sure I know exactly where the steps are and if it's lining up correctly. And the kind of funny thing about that is that's what I'm doing actually right now. It's a great way for me to get the timing done without doing a horrible amount of editing afterwards. So, ooh, I accidentally played the wrong file. But I figure since this is meta, I can just kind of go over it. So I did use Smooth to kind of clip that one thing where I was playing violin. Pretty much used overlay after assembling my main talking points. Like I'll actually go through and clip all these together and then I guess kind of cut it in different places to make it a little bit less repetitive and a little bit more smooth. But I typically try to avoid kind of excessive editing, mainly because it's just not very fun for me. But I will eventually just overlay all the little video clips I made on top of my, I guess, video, add a little thing for subtitle, and then I'm pretty much done. So maybe that sounded a little bit repetitive, I don't know. But either way, that's me editing that footage, how I made that little 3-minute video. Editing can typically take somewhere between 1 hour to 2 hours to 5 hours, but yeah, a lot of that is actually, since I do use a 2-stage process, and sometimes I have to like make more clips and then translate those back. I'm actually waiting for the computer to render, so I'm free to do whatever and things like that during that time period. So anyways though, have a good one, YouTube. Maybe I should have my scripts run on a render server or something, but either way, I hope you enjoyed my little Ncurses video editor program. I currently have a version on my website. I'll probably update it to the later version I've just kind of finished writing. But anyways, bye. Have a good one.